May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, actually a repeat guest, Laura Burges, and she's going to talk about a book on the wisdom of Tibet, a book of stories. The exact title of the book is Wisdom Stories of Tibet, Tales of Magic, Adventure, and Bravery. So that's her new one. And hey, I'm looking right now at her page on the San Francisco Zen Center site, sfzc.org/teachers/Ryuko-Laura-Burges. Incidentally, her name Burgess has one S, something I had to correct in A Brief History of Tassajara. I had it in there with two S's, didn't check, shame on me. And there we go. I'm going to read you what it says, the San Francisco Zen Center site. Ryuko Laura Burges. Ryuko, you know, when Americans use an RY word from Japanese, we don't pronounce it like them because we put our R in our throat and they do it in the front of the mouth. So it's almost like a DR, Ryuko, or something like that for them. And it's harder for us, Ryuko. Anyway, Ryuko Laura Burges, a lay entrusted Dharma teacher in the Soto Zen tradition, teaches classes and lectures and leads retreats in Northern California. She received monastic training at Tassajara Zen Mountain Center and co-founded the Sangha in Recovery program at San Francisco Zen Center. She is the abiding teacher at Lenox House Meditation Group in Oakland. Her most recent book, and this isn't true, they don't have her most recent book. Hey, Laura, get them to update it. Well, anyway, a prior book from Shambhala is The Zen Way of Recovery, an illuminated path out of the darkness of addiction. She is also the author of the children's books Buddhist Stories for Kids and Zen for Kids. Anyway, she's going to talk mainly about Wisdom Stories of Tibet book. Why don't we just give her a call right now and let's see what she has to say.
Hi.
Hi there. How you doing, Laura?
I'm all right, David. Good to hear from you.
Yeah. So what are you up to?
Well, I'm all ready to talk to you about Wisdom Stories of Tibet.
Well, talk away.
Well, a couple years ago, Ivan Burkholz at Shambhala asked me if I'd like to write a series of children's books from, featuring folk tales from different countries, starting with Tibet and then India and then Japan. And of course I wanted to do that. And so he hooked me up with Lama Chonam. Now, Lama Chonam and I have never met. He lives in Ashland, although we really hit it off and had a lot of fun with this book. And the way we worked together was he would share stories with me from his childhood and from, Tibetan folk tales are a wonderful oral tradition going back thousands of years. And so my job was to listen and take notes and then rewrite these stories, thinking about today's kids, today's readers, and trying to make them lively and accessible for children. So that's what we did together. And the book came out in February, and it's beautifully illustrated by an artist in Costa Rica, Wen Su. She's going to be illustrating each of these three. It's 3 separate volumes.
Yeah.
So, I've been hanging around Zen Center for since 50 years now. So that's my background and my training. And, of course, I know a little bit about Tibetan Buddhism. But, some of these stories are really wild. They are really wild. And so it was a whole new window for me onto a different kind of Buddhist practice and thought,
How about telling us a wild story?
Okay. Well, this is one that I particularly like. I'll read this to you. One day, a father and his young son were... this is called The Treasure. The Treasure.
Ah.
One day, a father and his young son were flying kites in the foothills of the mountains where they lived. The boy's mother had died when he was a baby, and so the father and son had only each other. They loved each other dearly and were very close. In fact, the boy's father called his son Norbu, or Jewel. As the kites bobbed against the bright blue sky, tails swirling and dancing in the breeze, Norbu and his father pulled on their kite strings. Norbu's father said, "I've raised you to have a loving and trusting heart, but my boy," and at this his eyes twinkled, "always keep one eye open." The boy thought about this for a moment, confused. "Father, what do you mean?" His father turned to him. "Even the kindest and most honest person can stumble onto the wrong path if they are tempted. So, be careful, my son, for I know that your hard work will lead you to great wealth. Protect it." Just then, Norbu's best friend, Dedan, came running up the hill with his kite. Norbu and his father helped him launch it on the wind. Norbu grew up proud and strong. Schooled by his father in the wisdom of Guru Rinpoche, he learned to be strong, upright, and sincere. The years went by, and as the old man lay dying, he said to Norbu, "Remember what I told you long ago. Be kind and generous, but always keep one eye open." And with that, he closed his eyes and peacefully left this life. Norbu was a man now, honest and hardworking, trading in copper, salt, and brightly woven rugs. Missing his father, he worked so hard that he never seemed to have time to find a wife and raise a family. All his effort went into his business, and in this way he amassed the wealth that his father had predicted. One day, when Norbu was about to embark on a long journey, he thought of his father's words and of his friend, Dedan. "Surely I can trust my best friend with my treasure," he thought to himself. So he took his 2 bags of gold nuggets to Dedan, saying, "I will be away for a month, and I don't want to leave this gold in my house where robbers might find it. Will you take care of it for me until I come back?" "Why, of course, my friend. We've known each other since we were boys, rolling hoops in the dirt. You can trust me completely." But Norbu didn't notice the gleam in Dedan's eyes as he took the bags of gold. A month went by, and Norbu returned from his travels. He went to Dedan's house, where Dedan's daughter, Tsering, and his son, Jampa, were playing hide-and-seek in the bushes. Dedan sat down on the front steps, drinking a cup of tea. When he saw Norbu coming, he jumped up, spilling his tea on the ground. Norbu greeted Dedan and said, "My friend, I've come for my bags of gold. I hope you've taken good care of them." Dedan's shoulders slumped, and he turned a sad face towards his friend, Norbu. "I did my best, but a very strange thing has happened. something very strange indeed. I hid the gold in a box in the ground, but when I went to check on it, the gold had turned into sand. That is strange, said Norbu. Can I see? So Dedan took him inside where the 2 cloth bags that had once held gold now held only sand. Dedan waited for his old friend to get angry, but to his surprise, Norbu just said, "Don't worry, my friend. I'm sure you did your best. Let's have a cup of tea." As the two sat on the steps of Dedan's house, sipping their tea and watching the children play, Norbu said, "You are so lucky to have such wonderful children. What a gift. I wish I had made time in my life to have a family like yours. Your wife and children are like jewels." Dedan felt sorry for his old friend. Maybe Norbu was lonely living all by himself. "How would you like to take the children to stay with you for a week? My wife and I have been wanting to visit the monastery on the other side of the lake. If you would take care of Tsering and Jampa, that would be a big help." "I would be delighted," answered Norbu. The children were happy to go with Norbu, who had always been like a favorite uncle to them. When they arrived at his house, Norbu cooked up a fine pot of tukpa, a delicious noodle soup. The next day, he went to the marketplace and bought 2 monkeys. He taught the older male monkey to come when he called Jampa, and he taught the younger female monkey to come when he called Tsering, rewarding them with handfuls of walnuts. The monkeys were bright little things. They learned quickly, and the children loved playing with them. One early morning a week later, the children were still asleep upstairs in Norbu's house, and the monkeys were playing in the trees when Dedan came along the path. "I've come for the children," he called, seeing Norbu sitting on the steps of his house. Norbu's shoulders slumped, and he turned a sad face toward Dedan. "Oh, my friend, something very strange has happened. Something very strange indeed. I did my best to take care of your children, but while you were away, they turned into monkeys." Dedan couldn't believe his ears. "That's impossible." Frantic, he called, "Jampa, Tsering." And the 2 monkeys, hearing their names, skittered down from the trees and danced around Dedan, chattering with excitement. Looking down at them, Dedan's eyes filled with tears. "This is terrible. What will my wife say? Norbu, what can we do?" Norbu stroked his chin and thought for a moment. "Well, we're going to need a lot of gold if we are going to remove this curse." "How much gold?" asked Dedan. "Oh, about 2 bags ought to do it." "Don't worry, Norbu. I know where I can get it. I will be right back." Dedan rushed back home, emptied the sand out of the bags, and replaced it with the gold nuggets he had hidden in the box in the ground. Dedan returned with the gold and handed the 2 bags to his old friend. Norbu took the monkeys inside and led them upstairs, gave them some walnuts, and left them there to play. Then he gently woke the children and brought them outside into the sunshine. When Jampa and Tsering saw their father, they ran to him, hugging him. Norbu said, "That did the trick, Dedan. The gold turned the monkeys back into your children." "My treasures," Dedan cried as he held his children in his arms. Dedan stood, and he and Norbu looked into each other's eyes. Dedan was embarrassed that he had been tempted and had done wrong. All at once, he understood that Norbu had tricked him to get his gold back. In that moment, their many years of friendship were there with them, and in his heart, Norbu forgave Dedan. Suddenly, the friends burst out laughing. "Let's have a cup of tea," said Norbu. Family and friends are more precious than gold, and keep one eye open. So that's the story, The Treasure, from Wisdom Stories of Tibet.
Very good. I enjoyed that. I'll remember that.
Oh,
That's good. That's good.
Oh, good. That story reminds me of the phrase "skillful means."
Mm.
And I want to tell you that, in the story as it was told to me, once the children are returned to Dedan, that was the end of the story. But, I really felt like I wanted to make it clear that Norbu, that Dedan understood that he'd been tricked, and that Norbu did forgive him, and to give kids this understanding that when you have a friend for your whole life, your friendship is there with you even when you're in conflict and disagree with each other, or maybe even if you betray each other.
Yeah.
And so I wanted that to be an understanding at the end of that story.
Yeah. 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 I appreciate your additions. That makes sense to me.
Good.
Now, so this is the first of 3 books on and next are what countries?
The next one is coming out next year, Wisdom Stories of India, and then in the following year, Wisdom Stories of Japan. And in each of the volumes will be illustrated by this artist, wonderful artist Wen Su. Her book about Kuan Yin is it's for sale on Amazon and is one of the top-selling books, as is my book, Buddhist Stories for Kids, has been a really widely popular book, so that's kind of cool. So, yes, Ivan Burgess of Shambhala wanted to have a familiar voice throughout all 3 volumes, even though each of those books will be very distinct.
Yeah.
And in the Indian stories, I worked with a woman who was born in India but raised in the United States. She speaks Hindi. Prachi Mararka is her name. And she had the idea, and I'm really glad she thought of this, instead of just having which would be obvious to have Hindu stories, we have stories in it from all the different traditions in India. Well, there's so many, but there are Sikh stories and Muslim stories, Buddhist stories, and Sufi stories, and so on. So that tapestry of Indian thought and religion and spirituality is represented in that book.
Yeah, are you through with that book?
Well, I'm all through, but it's going to take a year to illustrate it.
Yeah. No, I just wondered. Do you have any Jain stories? Yeah,
there's 2 Jain stories in that book.
Yeah. Well, you are covering the field.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing about Shambhala is they wanted to kind of pace the release of the book so that there's space in between each one. But actually, I'm almost done with the Japanese stories. I worked on that with a wonderful man from Boulder. All of these, by the way, these collaborations were done on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't met Dai Kato, the Japanese. He's a Jungian psychologist who lives in Boulder. And he told me stories about Zen monks, and they were really fun, like Ikkyu and Kukai and Ryokan. Finally, I said to him, enough with the monks. I need children and animals. So I wanted to have those monk stories are great, but I needed to have some ordinary kids and animals.
Did you tell the Momotaro story?
I decided not to, just because it's so ubiquitous. But the story Little 1 Inch. I made him 5 inches because I thought you really couldn't accomplish much if you were only 1 inch. But that's another very popular story, and I worked with that one. And also Kintaro, I know isn't that a very prevalent figure in Japan? Mm. The boy with the gold on his chest. He wears a red top with a gold insignia on his chest. He's a super boy, super strength.
Oh,
so I think on Boys' Day or Children's Day, he's around a lot. People display Kintaro dolls to encourage their kids to be as strong and brave as him. But what I'll tell you a little bit. Lama Chonam was such a beautiful man. He lives up in Ashland most of the time. It was really fun working with him, David, because these stories are so precious to him. and they're so deeply embedded in Tibetan culture and thought. But he was very generous in letting me play around with them to some extent. So there's a story in the book called The Mouse Queen. The original story was The Mouse King, but I thought to have a heroic little female mouse would be a lot of fun. And usually he was okay with me playing around with the genders because there were way more male figures than female.
Sure.
He did tell me about Yeshe Chogyal, who's known as the Mother of Tibet, and she's a wonderful heroic figure. But in the very first story in the book is about King Gesar, and I love that story because when he was a little boy, it was prophesied that this little boy would be born and would grow up to be king. And so this jealous minister who heard this prophecy was very worried about this. And when a young woman came to their tent city with a yak and installed herself in this minister's brother's tent, he was, and then she had a baby. He was worried that baby might grow up to be king. He went to see the baby, and the little boy who'd just been born could walk and talk. Pretty unusual child. So the minister had him exiled to another land, and time went by, and then the warlords of this village, they needed his advice, so they were going to go find him, and I decided that Gesar would know they were coming, and so he would have hot black tea ready for them. And Lama Chonim said, well, it wouldn't have been black tea. It would have been wine. And I said, well, I don't drink alcohol myself, and I really don't want there to be alcohol in a kid's story. And Lama Chonim said, how about juice boxes? He had a great sense of humor. There's another part in that story about Gesar where he has to win this horse race in order to become king. So he goes up into the mountains to seek a horse. And I wanted him to find a mare to ride. Well, no. Lama Chonim said, oh, no. A king would not ride a mare. He said any Tibetan reading that story would really be taken aback by that. So I had him go up to the mountains, and this mare trots up to him with her son, the stallion trotting along next to him. And this is the mare says to the future king, please choose my son. He will serve you well in the horse race. He can fly and he can talk. And when you get to the end of the race, just let him fly over all the other contestants, and you'll be king. So I thought it would be fun if the stallion was blue. And so when I read my draft of it to Lama Chonim, he said, wait a minute. No, the horse wasn't blue. And I said, oh, okay, so the horse can talk and it can fly, but it's not blue. He said, no, it wasn't blue.
Well, maybe because, colors have such significance in Tibetan culture and religion.
Yeah, there were certain lines that I couldn't cross with Lama Chonim, but he was just such a sweet, delightful man. He has a beautiful, very soothing voice. And by the way, David, not to beg, but I might be the only person who learned how to use WhatsApp from a Tibetan Lama.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, because he was going to go to France and he wanted to be in touch with me. I'd never used WhatsApp before. But so he told me how to use that so we could still communicate while he was in France.
Right. Yeah, Americans tend not to use WhatsApp. It's Europe here. Even if you come here as a tourist, you should get WhatsApp. Everybody uses WhatsApp. All the drivers, everybody.
Yeah. I think I need another tutorial from Lama Chonim.
Well, there's not much to it. It's
I know.
pretty simple.
I'm I'm a technophobe.
Well,
David, are you writing something these days?
I have a book coming out in September called Tassajara Stories, being
Tell me about.
published by Monkfish. It's the first of 3 volumes. It just goes through the first year, 1967.
Well, tell me more about it.
No, this is your podcast. I you'll know. Yeah, I'm working on this. Actually, the second and third volumes are pretty much ready, but they still need months of work each. Yeah, that's enough of that. Look, I want to ask you now about books you did before this wisdom series. Remind me.
Well, it's kind of wonderful the way this came about, David. I taught kids for 35 years, and I've been at Zen Center for 50 years, and so I've been around the block a few times, and Ivan Burgess called San Francisco Zen Center and asked David Zimmerman, the abbot, if he knew of anybody who had worked with children and had practiced Zen for a long time and knew how to write. And I'm very fortunate that David Zimmerman said, yes, Laura Burges.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you are fortunate.
Ivan was coming.
You are, whoever he asked might have gone, gee, I don't know.
Yeah, and why he called, of all the Zen centers in all the world, why he called San Francisco Zen Center, I'm not quite sure, except that didn't Shambhala originally publish Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind?
No, Weather Hill.
No,
Weather Hill.
Not originally. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Shambhala got it when Weather Hill closed, I don't know, 25 years ago or something.
Okay, yeah.
But Shambhala has a long tie with Zen Center. Ed Brown, my God, his cookbooks made more than Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. Yeah, the bread book and all that.
His books brought people to Zen Center because they were it was translated into so many languages. I mean, very often when I was at Tassajara, I'd say, well, how'd you hear about Zen Center? Oh, I read the bread book.
That's right.
This guy from Denmark.
That's right.
Yeah.
When Richard Baker became abbot, he was on an airplane sitting next to somebody, and, they asked him, what he did and this and that. And when the guy learned he was the abbot of Zen Center, he said, do you know Ed Brown?
That's very funny.
Yeah.
Well, so Ivan came to town, and we met in the Zen Center courtyard, and we really hit it off. And he told me to, write a sample story. I had this idea of writing Jataka tales, rewriting Jataka tales. So I wrote up the Raja and the Monkey King, sent it off, didn't hear anything. Couple months went by.
Really?
And I thought, well, I guess that was worth a try. I get a call one morning, and it's Ivan, and he says, Laura, we're in a business meeting here at Shambhala. We sent you a contract. Weren't you happy with it? And it was in my Hotmail spam folder.
Oh, yeah.
So that day I got a Gmail account. I should have known that Hotmail's not that dependable. Yeah, so I went to the San Francisco Library and I read about 100 Jataka tales in their reference section, and I'm not the first person to do this, but I chose. When I would tell people that I was writing Jataka tales, they'd say, "Oh my God, they're so violent and creepy," and a lot of those stories are not, really not appropriate for children. And some of them are quite punitive. I'm not sure it's a great bedtime story to tell a kid, if you do something bad, you're going to get trampled to death by elephants. Probably not a great message for children. So I chose stories that I felt were uplifting and humorous and had some kind of message that would be a good one for children. And, I had this idea because I did want my book to be different than the other Jataka tales. I thought about how Buddha was born under a tree and enlightened under a tree and taught under trees and died under a tree. And so I decided to have a tree in every story. And it was really fun researching native trees of India. And also I wanted all the animals in the story to be native to India. Sometimes you'll read a Jataka tale and there's a character called a rabbit, but rabbits didn't come to India till the British arrived.
Oh.
So I wanted to make sure these were native animals. And there's a tree in every story. And yeah, so I had a lot of fun writing that. And the illustrator is such a wonderful illustrator. And I'm sorry I'm blanking out on her name right now. It'll pop into my mind, but she did the most beautiful illustrations on the cover. The Buddha sitting in full lotus, really beautiful.
Yeah.
So that led to my next book, which was Zen for Kids, and I used the paramitas. I didn't call them the paramitas, but I used those 6 principles and found stories, not necessarily Japanese or Indian stories, but some of them are Jewish stories, that reflect patience and wholehearted effort and generosity and so on. And then I included a lot of the activities that I did with children when I was teaching 3rd grade, gardening activities and cooking activities. And so that went out. And then I really wanted to collect some of the Dharma talks I've given around the subject of Buddhism and recovery. And there are books out about Buddhism and recovery, but a lot of them focus on the 12 steps or the principles of AA. And I didn't really want to break my anonymity at that level. So I just called it recovery. And I focus more on Buddhist teachings that can support us in recovery, like the paramitas, for example, as principles to live by.
Yeah.
So that was I had to write quite a few chapters and send them to Shambhala for that proposal to get accepted. And then I interviewed people in recovery and had an appendix at the end where people in recovery could talk about their own stories of recovery and Buddhism. So these were people that practice both Buddhism and recovery principles. So that's been very gratifying, and I'm so pleased to hear that groups of people in recovery are using that book as a kind of study guide, to read it one chapter at a time and discuss it. And there are activities at the end of each chapter. Now, the one time when I talked to you, you said, say the name of the book. So that book is called The Zen Way of Recovery, An Illuminated Path Out of the Darkness of Addiction. A title I did not think up myself. Shambhala's changed all the titles I've come up with, but I guess they know about marketing. So
you did say what?
I didn't. They never accepted any of the book titles I suggested for my own books.
Right, but you said you said something about marketing then.
Oh, that Shambhala knows about marketing.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have called it. I wanted to call Buddhist Stories for Kids. I wanted to call it Monkeys and the Bodhi Tree. But they said, look, if you call this book Buddhist Stories for Kids, when people Google Buddhist Stories for Kids, your book will pop up. And that's true.
Yeah.
So that was a good idea on Shambhala's part. You've worked with Shambhala, so you know what I'm talking about.
I've been lucky. The last podcast talk I did was with Andy Carr, and he didn't get the subtitle he wanted. He thought it was too. It sort of embarrassed him for Into the Mirror. It was like claiming too much. and he said, you might have experienced that or something, but I haven't. I've gotten exactly the titles, subtitles I wanted, except with the book that's coming out, Tassajara Stories, the subtitle, John Sweeney at Monkfish suggested the term a sort of, and boy, I thought that was great. So the subtitle is A Sort of Memoir Oral History of the First Zen Buddhist Monastery in the West, the first year, 1967. So he added a sort of, but I thought that was great.
That is great. That is great.
And
well,
yeah.
I just want to say I am sheepish about the recovery book. The Zen way of recovery, that's fine, but an illuminated path out of the darkness of addiction is a little bit overblown in my opinion.
Yeah,
but,
I've been lucky to escape that. But I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But you and I know that publishers make titles and subtitles. I mean, boy, they don't necessarily make them, but they have the last say. And people don't realize that's true in headlines, in articles in the newspapers and magazines too.
Well, I wrote a humorous piece about dating that appeared in the Chronicle in the Sunday section years ago, and the title they gave it was pretty good. I thought it was they called it The Days of Wine and Neurosis, WHINE, The Days of Wine and Neuroses, and I thought that was a pretty good title. Actually,
that's funny.
Now, are you eliciting stories from people from up Tassajara?
No, it's all finished. But I'm always not for the books, and also it just goes through. It goes through 1975, the years I was there. My experience. I do have a section for a few things later, but I'm always, Cuke.com. I'll put anything in there that. Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff from you already on Cuke.com. So it's a more.
I know you do. I'm grateful for that.
And so anything you have to add, don't worry about the books. Actually, Cuke.com is a more. Nothing's permanent, but it's a more. It'll be there. But actually, I put the books on there too. Everything's sort of in there.
That's when I told my partner David that I was going to be talking to you tonight. I described you as sort of an archivist for the diaspora of the Suzuki Roshi lineage. That you kind of keep people in touch with each other and keep track of what people are doing and how this practice spreads, and it's a really wonderful resource in so many ways. Well, I have a story for you about Tassajara.
Yeah, tell it.
Would you like? Okay. Well, Linda Ruth Cutts, my teacher, invited me to come to Tassajara for sesshin during the spring a few years ago. So I was down there, and I always had this practice when I went to the Zendo in the morning for breakfast that I wouldn't look at the menu for any meal. I just would go and I would accept what was offered. So I'm sitting there in the Zendo, and the cereal was served, and then the middle bowl, and then in the small bowl, the server came around, and cabbage. I like cabbage, hot cabbage. So I took a heaping bowl of hot cabbage, and then when it was time to eat, I tasted it, and it was kimchi. And there was no way. I can't eat hot food. There was no way I could eat this kimchi, especially not at the rate we eat in the Zendo. So I didn't know what to do. You can't dump your cabbage in the bucket when it comes around. So I reached in my big sleeve of my robes. I thought that's what those big sleeves are for. You can hide things in there. I took a cloth out of there, and I've ceremonially wrapped up my third bowl in that cloth and put it back in my sleeve. And then when we folded up, cleaned our bowls and put everything away, and I twirled around on my zafu and got onto the floor, the guy sitting next to me looked right at me and gave me this big shit-eating grin, as if to say, I saw what you did. And so I took that bowl and went out to the compost bin and ceremonially buried it in the compost. That was the only time that ever happened to me, where I ended up with something I just could not eat.
Yeah. I've never had that problem. We have a large amount of kimchi here in the refrigerator, and I have to remember to eat some every day. But
Oh,
I have a
wow.
friend that makes sauerkraut too, and they're sort of both like really good for, I don't know, what are they supposed to have? Probiotics.
Probiotics.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, I love kimchi. Actually, there's a Balinese woman, the daughter of a guy I know, and she makes great kimchi, better than our housekeeper makes. But they're both good. Yeah.
Too hot for me. Too hot for me. No, thank you.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of hot here, but at different levels,
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good to eat too much. You don't want too much hot food. Well,
Now, did I tell you that I was around when Daya was ordained?
well, I can't. I
to
think
help
you had dinner with her and Kelly
and Kelly.
at Peter van der Stairs.
Yeah, that was really fun. It was really great to reconnect with her, and she and I are both in the Lay Teachers Association, so we see each other, send emails back and forth sometimes. And it was really fun to see Kelly as a grown-up too.
He's been a grown-up a while.
Yeah, I know, but I hadn't seen him. I don't know if I'd ever, Kelly, my memory of Kelly is when I was at Tassajara. I used to go down after I wasn't living there permanently. I mean, during practice period, I went down in the summer to help cook for the guests, and I did the play. I don't know if you saw it. Everyone Knows What a Dragon Looks Like. I did that play with the kids on the deck behind the linen room.
Oh, neat!
And we got the dragon from Green Gulch Farm. They shipped it down to Tassajara, and when the dragon appears in that story, everyone knows what a dragon looks like. And it was dark. That dragon descended from the roof of the office with sparklers in his snout, and it was quite impressive. And Kelly played the old man that turns into the dragon.
Wow!
And yeah, it was really fun.
How old was he then?
And he was only about, I bet he was 8 or 9.
Is that right? Well, then
Maybe.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I was there too.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I've forgotten about it. Oh.
Kelly.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Now I'm starting to vaguely remember that. Right, it'll probably come back to me. Oh, I want to mention one thing to you. You had a long, you taught at the San Francisco school, right?
Yeah, 35 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And my sister was the secretary for the San Francisco school, right near the first, not at the very first. I went over there with Yvonne and Jenny when they were just looking at the building.
Yeah.
And Yvonne Rand, Jenny Baker. And then Renee Luby was the director, and Susan became the secretary, my sister, and she was for a few years. It was great. I'd go over there and visit her if I was in town. But she went to a reunion meeting of it recently. Did you go to that?
I didn't hear about that. No.
Uh,
It was an event, a reunion event, or a planning thing.
no, I wasn't planning. That's interesting because I mentioned you. Maybe it wasn't a reunion. Maybe she just got together with Renee. But I'll ask her and I'll let you know.
Well, that school has changed so much, and I think it tries to hold on to the original spirit of it. But of course, it's grown. It looks totally different. We had one event where a lot of alums came, including Yvonne's daughter. Can you think of her name?
Hillary.
Hillary came, and I was asking Hillary, what's it like to be back at the San Francisco school? And she said, well, we were walking down the hallway. She says, well, it looks different, but it still smells the same. And I really laughed because it always kind of smelled like stale lasagna, left over from lunch. But I'm really glad I landed at that school because there are a lot of kind of hoity-toity private schools in the city, and that was a truly progressive school.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, let me see. No, I don't have it.
What are you looking for?
Yeah, I'm just remembering some of the ways the school dealt with, like when, here it is. Right. Let me read this, David. This is from the end of the Zen Way of Recovery.
Yeah. Oh, incidentally, my wife Katrinka is dealing with, she's like a sponsor, and not just a sponsor. She has people she relates with, about recovery all the time. So I want to make sure she knows about your recovery book. I can't believe I wouldn't have already told her, but anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because
I think people find it very helpful. It's things in practice that I've found helpful. I came to Zen Center in '75. I didn't drink at all. I quit drinking right before I came to Zen Center. I was 25 years old, and it was already a problem for me. And I plunged into practice, and I loved the clarity of practice. Pretty soon I was living at Tassajara, where alcohol wasn't an issue. And I didn't drink for 5 years, but when I came back to the city, it started creeping back in my life. Those of us who have a problem with alcohol can tell ourselves, well, I haven't had a drink in 5 years. I'm okay now. I've been practicing. I can handle it. And it wasn't okay, and I spent most of the next 5 years just trying to quit for various lengths of time. And finally, I walked in the rooms of recovery and haven't had a drink since September 28th, 1985. But I credit that with the principles of recovery along with Buddhist practice. But I couldn't, apparently, I had this moment of clarity where I had gotten very drunk one night and I'd gone back to school to get a teaching credential. And I thought, gosh, I guess Buddhism didn't cure my alcoholism. And I thought about Buddhist teachers who, whatever kind of addiction, sex addiction or alcohol or drugs, had harmed their communities, even though they could sit zazen for 7 days and give beautiful Dharma talks. And I'm not going to say their names, but some of those teachers who they were. So I got up out of that classroom and I went and made a phone call, and I've been sober ever since then. But for me, it was both of those things together, practice and the kind of common sense, corny, homespun, down to earth, very practical path of recovery that started in the 1930s.
Yeah.
But I want to read you something from the end of the Zen way of recovery, because this is from. I wrote this after the first Trump administration. So this is the afterword of that book. After the election on November 8th, 2016, we gathered in the music room at San Francisco School as Doug Goodkin, a legendary music teacher, led the students in a song about a gray goose, and we joined in on the chorus. It's an African-American song about a goose that, despite others' repeated efforts to destroy her, survives and flies deep into the sky, a long string of goslings behind her. I wondered why Doug had chosen that song for this occasion. But when we finished, he said that each of us has a gray goose within us that can take flight and free us. No one can touch it. No one can take it away from us. There is a place inside each of us that is sacred and inviolable. No matter what happens in the world, no matter how dark the times, this bright wing of freedom, these bright wings of freedom are within each of us. Doug said to the children, "You may not understand it completely now, but someday you will know that today is an important day in our country's history, a day when many of the values this school stands for are in danger: democracy, social justice, personal responsibility, the beauty and power of diversity. And later, when you do understand, I want you to look back and remember that on this day at our school, we gathered and we sang." Recovery is about freedom, that flight of freedom within us that no one can take away from us unless we allow them to. Freedom from the craving that we hoped would soothe us and help us forget ourselves for a while. Freedom from the regret, the shame, and the guilt that accompany addiction. Today, I share my life with my partner, David. I wake up in the morning grateful for another day of practice and recovery, and before I go to sleep, I give thanks. I celebrate my daughter, Nova, and the journey that she has taken to become a gifted teacher of children and a warrior for social justice. My friends, my family, all those who walk this path of practice and recovery, I couldn't have gotten from there to here without you. There are both sudden and gradual awakenings in practice and recovery. Once, when I was stepping out of the Zendo at Tassajara, the entire shimmering world suddenly awakened with me in that moment. When I'd been sober for about 3 years, I woke up and something was different. I realized that gradually my shame had slipped away. There's an image in Zen of a monk who walks outside into a light rain, and when he returns, his robes are damp. This speaks of the subtle yet cataclysmic effect of practice transforming our lives. With the clarity of practice and recovery, we can wake up to the world and to one another with a full heart and clear eyes. We can say to anyone, anytime, "Don't worry, I know who I am." Now, you're going to recognize "Don't worry, I know who I am" because I told that story elsewhere in the book about Suzuki Roshi saying that to his student.
Yeah, well, I'd forgotten it, though.
It's in one of your beautiful little collections. I know.
Mm. Yeah. Well, people are always reminding me, and also, I've read through and listened to his lectures, and hear about it and story, for decades. But actually, what I experience is being reminded all the time.
Reminded of things that he said and did in particular?
Reminded, yeah, of any of it.
Yeah. Well, that's where our Zen Center friends come in handy. That I'm going to give the Dharma talk at Zen Center on Saturday and talk about this book. But when I was thinking about what I wanted to say, I just wanted to say, how important storytelling is. And I didn't get to meet Suzuki Roshi because I came to Zen Center in 1975. But all the stories about him and the Suzuki Roshi that I see reflected in the students who did practice with him, all of that makes me feel like I did know him in a way.
Yeah, I agree.
And those stories are important, to me.
Right. I don't think it matters if someone has met him in person or not. I mean, it's good and all that, but it's not a silver bullet for practice or understanding anything. We all are on a path, and we all have the wisdom to answer all our questions within us, and we stumble into different teachings that help us, and they're all just like hints, and we do the best we can.
Yeah, I remember I was walking down the hallway after Zazen down in the basement, walking out of the Zendo, and for some reason, Richard Baker stopped and said to me, "You have everything you need. Just stop looking for answers outside yourself."
Oh, good.
So I took that to heart. And I remember, Ed Brown was very important to me when I came to Zen Center because I thought, here's somebody who's practicing with really strong emotions.
Yeah.
And if he's here, I guess I could be here too. And I asked him a question, and he said something about practice or Zen, and he said, "Well, what do you think about that?" And I said to him, "Well, I want to hear it from the horse's mouth." And he laughed. He said, "You're the horse's mouth."
Mm.
I didn't get that. It, like you say, those stories about Suzuki Roshi are wonderful, but we have our own experiences and moments of clarity and our own learning to do that's just as valid if we only give ourselves that recognition that our experience teaches us what we need to know as well.
Yeah. Indeed. And, what did he teach? To be still and quiet.
Yeah. And yet volumes are written about it.
Right. Well, that's just one side of it.
Yeah. I know you like to know about, maybe you know these things, but somehow I was in touch with Tom Ninkovich.
Yeah.
And did you know that he's living in Croatia?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. He says he probably will never have enough money to come back, but he's learning his language there.
Oh, I think he's more than learning it. I think he's really into it. I don't think he needs to come back. That's the way I feel being in Bali. I have no interest in going back. I mean, I'd like to say hello to people, but it's expensive, and it's also, you have to drive long distances.
Yeah.
I don't know. People can come here and say hello.
Well, do your kids come there to see you?
Yeah, Kelly has been here twice, but he hadn't been here in the last 6 years. Kelly was here for 3 weeks and then for a month. Clay was here for 6 weeks with his partner and their baby a year and a half ago. His prior partner and our granddaughter are here for a month right now. Katrinka's son and his wife and 2 daughters were here for, 3 weeks. I guess that was 2 years ago. And also I'm in constant touch with them on WhatsApp and Marco Polo. And if you don't know about Marco Polo, it's a really great way to communicate.
I don't know about that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's video walkie-talkie, they call it. The other person isn't there. You just send them a little video, and it's just sort of instantaneous, pops up for them, and they can listen to it when they have time. They can answer it when they have time. And I've found it increases communication and decreases the amount of time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Because when you're talking live with each other, it's sort of hard to stop. Incidentally, Skype, which I've called you on, might hang up at an hour, and I'd just call you back unless we have said goodbye before that happens. Is there maybe we have come to a natural farewell spot? Is there anything more you'd like to talk about? There's no limit.
Well, I just want to say that I've been in touch with David Schneider. We kind of keep tabs on each other, and also Eric Larson, and he's going to be doing. Eric is, during COVID, I was watching something on TV at the theater, the Marsh Theater in San Francisco, and I was watching this Buto dancer, and suddenly it occurred to me it was Eric Larson,
right?
And he's going to be performing at San Francisco Zen Center on May 17th this year. And he did a presentation of the house that he's remodeling in Kyoto, and did a kind of virtual video tour of that house, which was really, really wonderful to see. So it's fun to be in touch with our old Zen friends,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Eric's amazing. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. But I think we've covered a lot of territory, David. So I'm happy to say thank you so much for having me talk about these books, and it's been a wonderful second act for me, or third act maybe, to be, it's sort of a culmination of my long years teaching kids and my practice and my recovery to have the opportunity to write these books, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
It's been really enlivening for me.
Yeah.
So I thank you for your interest, and I look forward to your books coming out.
Yeah, well, I do too. And I'm going to get that recovery book, or I'm going to make sure Katrinka has it.
Yeah, I think you might find it helpful.
Well, thanks a lot, Laura. It's been great talking with you.
Well, thank you, and okay. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
Well, this has really been fun. Thanks so much, David. I really appreciate it.
Me too. But
okay.
Take care.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So thanks a lot, Laura Burges, Ryuko Laura Burges. I really appreciate it. That was good. Incidentally, while we were talking, I was saying Skype, has a tendency to just hang up after an hour and you got to call back. And we were saying goodbye. We were in the 59th minute, and I was looking at the seconds go by, hoping that we had a nice conclusion without having to call her back and say, hey, we've got to say goodbye. But it got cut off just we're saying goodbye. But we didn't have to. We actually had about 40 seconds left. 40 seconds we could have filled with wonderful words of parting. Anyway, Laura, incidentally, not incident. A lot of times when we say incidentally, it's not really incidental. So I think it would be better to have the habit to say not incidentally. Oh, Laura, not incidentally, I talked to my sister about that get-together you had, and it was just with Renee Luby and a few of the very, very early people from the San Francisco school before you got involved with it, Laura. So thanks a lot. Wow, you've got a good writing gig going. This is neat. She's one of those people that it just fell in her lap, but she's written some other stuff. If you go on Kook.com And it'll probably get more organized if you wait a few days, because there'll be this and this podcast, the prior podcast. I know I've got a few things she's written on there. So things tend to get more upgraded and organized, when we add something else from them. So anyway, thanks a lot, Laura. Farewell. And until we meet again, this is DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita Feline Manis. Oh, my dear granddaughter, Lucia, and her wonderful mom, Rita, and dear, lovely Katrinka. And we're all wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.